I think the Enneagram is always helpful.
The Enneagram was meant to be a way of getting out of our box.
If the Enneagram gave you 15% more clarity, that is an evolutionary leap forward.
Welcome to Typish, an Enneagram podcast where we explore how your personality shows up in all of life. I'm your host, Tyler Zock, and in each episode, I connect you with leading experts on how your personality impacts your relationships, mental health, spirituality, and everything in between. We are in the middle of a 6-week series called Healthy Relationships. If you want the bullet point notes for all 6 episodes right now so that you can start to see improvements in your relationships right away, go ahead and click on the link below in the show notes and download that PDF as a free gift. Over these next 6 weeks, you get to hear from Suzanne Stabile, Sarajane Case, Krista Harden, Danny Cooper, Steph Barron Hall, and today I sit down with Ashton Whitmoyer-Ober. Ashton is an Enneagram 2 and the author of The Enneagram for Relationships, which came out in 2020. She followed that up with her popular book, The Enneagram Made Simple, in 2022. She founded Enneagram Ashton, where she offers Enneagram training and life coaching, and has built up an Instagram community of over 500,000 Enneagram enthusiasts. Incredible. Ashton is also a sought-after speaker, having led more than 150 workshops and speaking events. In today's episode, it features part of a conversation with Ashton that originally aired at my Enneagram Summit on love and relationships. I asked Ashton to come on the summit to share some of her wisdom from her book, The Enneagram for Relationships. So join me and Enneagram Ashton now as we go around the Enneagram and explore relationship tips for each type.
So, ones as the reformer, they do like to, they care a lot about order and justice and fairness. So in relationships, that's going to transfer into that relationship where they're going to want to make sure that things are fair among that relationship. They're going to want to make sure that, everybody's playing their part. But in relationships, they're also highly responsible. They are honest and trustworthy and committed to the relationship itself, right? They're committed to their people. So some tips I have for ones is where they can get in trouble or get caught up sometimes is with that inflexibility and with that criticism of not just other people, but of themselves that can kind of get in the way of their relationship. And so being able to be okay with other people doing things a different way, or being able to let other people help you do tasks that, you might like to remain in control over, and just really working to step into that 7 of being able to be more positive, be more flexible, take things as they come, and just to, enjoy each other and to be able to do fun things without having to think about all of the things that you have to do, and to just lose that language of you should be doing this, you should be doing that, and just being able to be with your partner or with the people around you.
Very good. One of the questions I put in my Type 1 book was, do you want to be effective or do you want to be right? And if you always want to be right, it's hard to improve those relationships. Okay, let's go to the best type 2.
So like you said before, because I am a 2, I care deeply about relationships. And I know that is pretty much across the board for several 2s. So I think it's why I'm so passionate about using the Enneagram for relationships, because I've seen so much change in that. But anyways, so the 2, the helper, their life is pretty much centered around relationships and being able to cultivate those relationships and have those connections with people. And so you might think, oh, 2s are great at relationships because, that's part of what makes them up in who they are. But just like every other type, they're going to struggle with some things in relationships. But let's talk about the good things. So in relationships, 2s are going to be extremely nurturing, helpful, compassionate, just really caring deeply about making sure that other people feel loved and wanted and cared for and appreciated, because those are all things that the Enneagram 2, wants to feel in return. Where they can get in trouble when it comes to relationships is when they are overly accommodating. So, having a hard time saying no because they just want to please that person, which can then lead to burnout, resentment, feeling like they're the only ones, caring for other people while nobody is caring for them in return. Also, twos often feel like their needs aren't being met. And so, what that can look like then is becoming a little bit needy in order to feel needed in relationships. So, if I place myself in positions of needing to be needed, then they will have no choice but to, engage me in that situation. So, just a couple things to look out for twos, but, also to remember to vocalize your needs. People won't read your mind, right? People won't read your mind and see what you need in that relationship, or just, show the people how you need them to love you. I think can be
Mm,
really impactful for it too.
mm. Yeah, I love how the Enneagram gently confronts every type, and each one has a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so, as a two, if you try to bite your tongue and um, try to be needed and aren't forthright with your needs or what you want in the relationship, then it leads you to get frustrated, resentful, and then blow up, and then it makes your
Hmm.
relationships worse. So
Right.
it's better it's better just to be
Yeah.
direct on the front end of what you
Yeah.
need to prevent the two from hulking out, as
Yeah.
I say. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
Good
that's so
tips.
true. Hulking out, that's so funny. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, well, especially
Not
the mood.
relatable at all.
um, okay. The next best, number 3. That's my type.
Yeah. So threes, are really, they feel passionate about relationships as well. It's just going to be look different, right? Because of those motivations and why they feel passionate about relationships. So threes, in relationships, they want to really empower other people and cheer other people on, and really, kind of like succeed alongside of their partners and their friends and things like that. They really, value other people's input and value feedback, but, like everybody in the 2, 3, and 4, I should say, they can struggle with receiving feedback that might appear as critical, and instead prefer, feeling validated from the people around them. So, threes, whether they can get in trouble in relationships specifically is if they put tasks above relationship, right? Where they put what they're achieving above relationship, if they put status or how they're perceived, or even just how the relationship is appearing to other people above the relationship itself. So being concerned about appearances. So some tips that I have for threes is sometimes just really like listen to the people with whom they're in relationships with. Sometimes they're known to, just be thinking about what's next or the things they have to get done. And instead, to focus in on active listening. So not just like hearing, but understanding what people are saying when they're communicating to you. And also just being able to express your feelings and be more in tune with your feelings and your emotions, because for threes we know that they're there. Sometimes they just are a little bit repressed and need to be pulled out and shared with others in a safe place.
Another tip that I've found helpful for myself, and probably for other threes, it's helpful, is budgeting 25% of your schedule, or even 15 to 20% of nothing. And so you set your goals for the week, but only maximize or fill 80% of the time. That way you can budget for interruptions. You can budget
Hmm.
for water cooler conversations in the workplace and these things that oftentimes I feel like interruptions, and you don't have time for people, and it makes you, yeah, look up extremely selfish when you're just always
Yeah.
working on your thing and having to get stuff done, and then being reactive towards people who are trying to have good conversations with you throughout the week. So just trying to budget more interruption time into your schedule to allow for those divine interruptions and
Yeah, that's really good
relationship
advice.
cultivating good relationships. So,
I feel like even for me as a 2, I feel like that's just good advice.
oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to type fours.
So again, another type that's going to be really in tune with the connections that they have and valuing those deep connections. So in relationships, they don't want those surface level relationships. They want to be able to go deep and have those deep conversations and have those deep connections. And so if you are in a relationship with a 4 and you aren't that way, it might seem foreign at first, but that is just really what 4s desire is they don't want to sit around and talk about the weather. Like they want you to tell them something you experienced in your life growing up. But for 4s, they're also very empathetic and sensitive, in tune with their emotions and in other people's emotions. And so if they're in a relationship with somebody who isn't as tuned with their emotions, like they might be able to help you with that, to pull those characteristics out, to be able to really help you sit and figure out what you're feeling. Also in relationships, 4s might struggle with a little bit of selfishness at times, only then being focused on themselves, how they're feeling. They might feel so misunderstood that they shut people out. I always think like for 4s, they can either be like extremely withdrawn or in conflict, or they can be like highly aggressive. Like there's really no in between, and it's all based on like their emotional response. So, some tips for 4s is again to be more in tune with other people, to, be able to kind of share like your experiences with relationships and expectations that you have in relationships, have those conversations, but also to, welcome any other types of conversations that may come up. It's not just about you and your emotional experiences within the relationship. Like meet that other person where they're at and their comfort level when it comes to those types of things.
So many fours that I know have written books about their life and their experiences, and they come from a very I gotta express what's going on in my life, and when they can flip that switch to then becoming others centered, and hey, tell me about you, even if it's very mundane about their what they just did throughout the day, that can really improve their relationships. So,
Yeah, I
good
agree.
advice. Good advice. Okay, type fives.
So 5s are probably the type that might struggle with relationships the most. And it's not that they don't want to like be in relations with others. It just doesn't come as naturally to them as some of the other types. And a common misconception that we hear about 5s is that they're like emotionless, like that they don't feel anything, they don't experience emotions. And that's just not true. Again, it just might not look like a 4 or a 2 who's experiencing their emotions. They just feel like they can only share their emotions in like this confined safe space. And usually when it comes to relationships, like that, a healthy relationship builds that space for people. And so for 5s, they may feel like they can share their emotions with you because of that trust that's developed. So 5s in relationships, I mean, they're going to be independent. They love their independence. They love having their own set of hobbies and activities that they can do, but then they like to come back together, right? So they want you to be independent, have your own things that you like to do, but then come back together and be able to share, those experiences and things like that. So they value independence. They, might have strong boundaries within their relationships and be able to respect other people's boundaries too. Where they can get in trouble again is that like inability to share their emotions. But again, in a safe space, they might feel more open to be able to do that. And they really do seek to understand, right? Like we hear about 5s wanting to seek knowledge, but really they're seeking that knowledge because they want to understand either, whatever they're researching or whatever they're studying. And it's the same with people and with relationships, that if they are with somebody, they're going to seek to understand who you are, why you do things the way that you do and how you can work together. So a tip for fives would just be to try to let that guard down a little bit, to let more people in, let the people in that, you can trust. Obviously, I'm not saying like go trust everybody who, is walking on the face of the earth, but to be able to engage in conversations with people, to put yourself out there a little bit more, and just to be able to have those conversations to seek to understand others.
Fives miss out if they don't take risks to
Yeah.
leave their metaphorical castle and open and put down the drawbridge and get out and interact with people. So I think what you're saying, yeah, can be kind of summed up in that living in that castle and then taking risks to go out into the world to share yourself and experience others and to realize that there's a much better life than out
Hmm.
there than living in the castle.
Yeah,
And so that's
absolutely.
just daily is it's like taking steps of faith every single day to say, you know what, it's going to be better if I go exert myself or be with these relationships because it's gonna be life giving rather than life draining. And
Right.
it's a step of faith
For sure.
every single day. Okay, let's talk about type sixes.
So the sixes, at their core, they do value relationships and community and connection. It's just that they need to feel safe and secure. But, one of the core desires of a six is to seek guidance, and so they're going to seek guidance from the people with whom they're in relationships with, whether that be like polling the peanut gallery on like what decision they should make, or, being able to run things by them. But relationships are really important to them in that sort of way. And as the name suggests, the loyalists, obviously in relationships, they are extremely loyal and committed and trustworthy. Again, they want to provide a safe space for their people because that's something that they value, is being able to feel safe and secure. So similarly, they want to be able to offer that to other people as well. Where they can get in trouble in relationships is when, they kind of let some of that worry or that self-doubt get in the way of the relationships. And so maybe, they have a hard time trusting people at first, and so then they never explore what, that relationship could look like because they are too worried about what could go wrong, right? Or like, oh, if I become, friends with this person, like what could go wrong if they abandon me or if they leave me? They're always thinking about what ifs. And so, they can get caught up in the what ifs for so long that they miss something that's really, really good. And, they could just, start to spiral in that worst case scenario and the anxious feelings and all of that. Um, so, a tip for them again is kind of similar to the fives, where just like embrace stepping out of the comfort zone. Like, of course, don't do anything that makes you feel unsafe or like extremely uncomfortable, but you never know what could be out there for you if you don't take that first step, if you don't let people in, if you don't let your guard down at times. And again, I'm not saying like go trust everybody, but, seek out the people who have your best interests at heart and kind of form your group or form those relationships that are trustworthy because they, want people to be as loyal to them as they are in their relationships.
Beautiful. That's so helpful because my wife is a six, and
So's my husband.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe you've experienced this, but on our end, relating to the sixes, is we need to create space for
Yeah.
them to talk about the what ifs, to talk about the dangers or the things that they're concerned about. After I learned the Enneagram, I was like, oh, I need to create. That's like a love language, is creating space for
Yeah.
my wife to do that. But on the flip side, I think if sixes can do some of that heart work themselves first and
Right.
journal, do a brain dump and get some of their concerns on paper and then to realize how silly some of those fears are
Yeah.
and work through that
Mhm.
themselves. Then when they come to us, their spouses or their colleagues, there's a lot less like angstiness that they put out into the air. They don't
Yeah.
realize it's very just like an eight, it's therapeutic to vent their anger and then they're good.
Mhm.
It's like therapeutic for sixes to vent their anxieties because it just feels good to have that release. But then they don't realize how much it's affecting us
And, I've learned too to just prepare them, like don't dump last minute, things on
Mm-hmm.
them or like, okay, we have to do this, this, and this. And there was no preparing for that. I think that can be really helpful for sixes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about sevens.
So sevens, they also, are just relationship focused and really enjoy being around people, right? I should say they're like people focused. They love people. They love to experience things with people. They love to take people on their adventures and, to instill that like positivity and confidence in others. Similar to threes, they are, big cheerleaders for their people and just able to support people in that way. Where they can get in trouble is a lack of focus on the relationship, a lack of like impulsivity. So just like jumping headfirst into situations with people. They also, sometimes have a fear of commitment at first. So relationships can be a little bit scary if they, two sevens, if they feel like they're going to be tied down or, they're not going to be able to experience life in the way that they always have. But they're the friend that's always down to, go do whatever. And last minute plans are totally fine with a seven. Whereas, some people need like 4 or 5 business days notice to like get anything done. I know I can call my like seven friend and be like, "Hey, do you want to go to lunch today?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure,
Yep.
what time?" So that's always like super fascinating to me because they just love people so much that they want to spend their time doing things with others. But a tip for, sevens are always thinking about what's next, right? They have a really hard time focusing in on the present moment. And so when they're in relationships with people, to really just value that time that you're spending together, to focus in on and cherish that time, to focus in on the present moment, to not worry about, what you're doing tomorrow or what you can plan next, but instead to be able to cherish the time that you're spending together.
Love it. All of us have the ability to fill the room or fill the space with something. For me, it's if I'm not self-aware, I'm filling the space with kind of what I'm passionate about, what I'm working on.
Yeah.
Fours can fill it with their emotions. Sixes, like we said, can fill the space in a conversation with their
Mhm.
anxieties. And sevens, I've noticed, can fill the space with what they're passionate about, which is really fun. But if they have a new idea or something new on the horizon, that can affect relationships because it just
Yeah.
fills the conversation. It doesn't allow for the other person to feel seen or heard because it becomes all about the sevens
Yeah.
ideas and what they're
Mhm.
doing. And so to talk 50%, try to talk 50% less and talk 50% slower,
Yeah.
and to kind of try to minimize themselves just a little bit, to listen a little bit more and to have empathy would is just goes a long way for sevens, I found.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously that's gonna be a little bit different for like self-pres versus
Hmm.
social versus
Social,
one to
yeah.
one. Yeah. But sevens stereotypically do have that tendency to think inward and to, put like their experiences at the forefront. And so yeah, just being able to um, embrace all the experiences of the people around them as well.
Okay, type eights.
Type eights, the challenger, they are just super passionate about their people, protective of their people. They exert a strong energy, right? Where when eights come into the room, you're like, oh, I know that's an eight. I can feel it. And you can kind of sense that in a relationship too, right? Like if you're with a pair, you're with a friend group, like who the eight is in that group. But they are just super passionate. They, can be very compassionate towards their people, and they are honest and direct. Like they're able to kind of say what they mean and mean what they say. You never have to wonder where you stand with an Enneagram 8. You'll always know. Where they can get in trouble, of course, is when their assertiveness turns into aggressiveness, or if that protection of others can be perceived as being a bully. My sister is an Enneagram 8, and so I talk about her often in all of the things that I do on my social media and in my speaking events because it probably is the relationship that has been impacted the most from the Enneagram. Because me
Mm,
being a 2 and super
yeah.
sensitive, and her being an 8, we just clashed for a very long time. Where, I think a lot of people, before they understand what the Enneagram is, think they kind of have blinders on to the way that other people do things, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is how the world works, and this is how I view the world, and that must be how everybody else views the world. And so similarly, I thought like everybody should be emotional like me, or like everybody should be doing things
Yep.
the way that I am. And she was thinking, well, why doesn't Ashton just tell me what she means? Or like, if she's mad at me, why doesn't she just tell me instead of like beating around the bush? So,
Yep.
um, eights, of course, we have our fair share of differences as well as a lot of, siblings do, but we're able to understand each other better. And so for my entire life, I thought she was just like yelling at me all the time. And then I realized when I discovered the Enneagram that she's just passionate and that's just how she talks. And so, I never want eights to change who they are, right? But just remember who is on the other end. So, sometimes that can look like softening your tone or meeting other people where they're at, really just being open to understanding that other people do things differently than you and other people react differently than you and that people are just different, and I think that level of understanding can be really helpful for eights.
That's so good. I'm not going to sit here and think that they're mad at me unless I see evidence, like actual
Hmm.
concrete evidence. Because we can do that
Yeah.
so much, especially for twos.
The
If
spiral.
I look at you funny, then you'll be thinking
Yep.
about it the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And then for eights, and especially at 8, because you know that they're going to give you evidence. They're going to tell you
Yeah.
if they're
I
angry
know.
at you. So it's like the best sort of relationship to be in because you know they're going to be truthful and honest with you.
And honestly, like my entire life, she fought my battles for me. Like we were 3.5 years apart in school, or 4 years apart in school and 3.5 in life. And, she was my older sister that went ahead of me and kind of just protected me from everything. And so it's so interesting now having the language of the Enneagram to look back on that and see those motivations shine through. But, um, they are just very, nurturing and loving of their people, and I think they get a bad reputation sometimes.
Hmm. Okay, type 9s.
So nine's the peacemaker, man. They just want everybody to get along, everybody to love each other, and everybody to be happy. And so in relationships, it's going to reflect that where they really care deeply about the other person, their opinions, their wants, their desires. What can go wrong is when they neglect their own desires, their own needs, their own opinions because they merge with the other people. And so but besides that, they're also very empathetic and just wants other people to feel comfortable. Comfort is, huge for nines. So nines will do what it takes to kind of meet those needs of the people. And again, it kind of looks like then repressing their own things and anger as well, right? We see nines can get angry about needing to fulfill those things, but then they let it bury, and then it can explode or come out as being passive aggressive, a lot of resentment for that. But they need to make sure that there's no conflict, right? Conflict is a huge piece for nines. And so in relationships, they might tend to feel on edge sometimes or feel like they're walking on eggshells to avoid any sort of conflict that can happen. So if you're in a relationship with a nine and in relationships, of course, conflict is bound to come up. Be gentle with it and don't say things like, hey, we need to talk. And we need to talk in like 3 days from now, right? That's probably a nine's worst nightmare, having to wait for that. But instead being able to address things quickly and so that they can process and move on. But a tip for nines, is utilize your voice. Like you have strong opinions, you have strong desires and wants and needs, and we know they're in there. So, utilize that voice, share how you're feeling, share your opinions, what you want to do, even like what you want to have for dinner, where you want to go. Share those things. And for somebody who's in a relationship with 9, to also encourage them to utilize that voice, because that can be really important for them.
It's so good. There's a lot, you can see the connection between 9s and 2s here,
Hmm.
because, for 2s, you have to be forthright about your needs. Otherwise, you're going to Hulk out
Yeah.
eventually. And I think for 9s, that timeline is stretched. They're probably not going to Hulk out as fast as a 2 would, but they're
Right.
going to shut you out
Yeah.
later in life. So to know if you're trying to be overly nice to somebody and just sucking it up and I'm just going to be nice to them, knowing eventually you're actually hurting them, because eventually down the road you are going to cut them out. There are going to
Right.
be some really extreme passive aggressive stuff that's going to come out later in life. So to take those small steps of being honest now is actually a better way to love them. It's going to protect the long-term relationship. Well, this has been great. We made it through all 9 types, Ashton.
Yeah. It was great.
If you benefited from this episode, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and give us a 5-star rating and write a review so this content will be shared with more Enneagram enthusiasts like yourself. Now, before you go, let me ask you to reflect on this. As you listen to Ashton today, which tip resonated the most with you? And what's one small step you can put into action right now to strengthen one of your relationships? Remember, if you want your relationships to change, it often starts with you. Don't wait around for the other person to go first. Be the one who takes the first step. You may be surprised by what happens next.